Shalom. Most people do not realize they are paying for disorder every single day. Not immediately, not dramatically, but consistently. An unstructured life always sends the bill later. I am Rabbi Ezra Melech. I study Torah not as belief but as law, a governing system that explains why some lives stabilize and others quietly lose ground. This is not motivation. This is not theology. This is not emotional reassurance. This is structural explanation. Disorder is never free. It only delays payment. People believe disorder is harmless because it feels flexible. It is not. It is the most expensive design a life can have. An unstructured life consumes time. It consumes energy. It consumes attention. It consumes money. It consumes peace. Order reduces cost. Disorder multiplies it. People believe chaos is neutral. It is not. It is expensive. Most people would never accept this cost if it arrived as a bill. Consider the modern condition. Busy schedules without closure, work without defined containers, income without boundaries, relationships without limits, constant motion without consolidation. We mistake activity for productivity, movement for progress, engagement for effectiveness. The result is a life that runs continuously but never arrives. Energy expenditure without structural return. Think about your typical day. How many tasks begin but do not complete? How many conversations start but never reach resolution? How many projects launch but remain suspended? Each incomplete cycle creates drag. Each open loop demands maintenance. Each undefined boundary requires constant renegotiation. This is not philosophical. This is mathematical. Unfinished business accumulates interest. Undefined boundaries require repeated defense. Open systems leak energy at predictable rates. The modern professional works 60 hours per week but cannot identify what actually finished. The modern family schedules constantly but cannot create sustained peace. The modern individual consumes information continuously but cannot generate lasting understanding. Why? Because completion was never prioritized over commencement. Because closure was never valued over opening. Because boundaries were never established before expansion. Consider your workspace. How many browser tabs remain open? How many documents stay in draft? How many emails sit partially answered? Each represents a cognitive burden, a mental subscription fee, a structural debt that compounds daily. Consider your relationships. How many conversations ended without clarity? How many commitments lack specific terms? How many boundaries remain unstated? Each ambiguity requires ongoing energy. Each undefined expectation creates tension. Each unclear boundary generates conflict. Consider your finances. How many automatic subscriptions run unexamined? How many spending categories lack limits? How many financial goals remain vague? Each uncontrolled expense reduces available resources. Each undefined boundary enables unconscious depletion. This extends beyond personal management. Organizations suffer the same structural laws. Teams without clear roles. Projects without defined endpoints. Meetings without specific outcomes. Responsibilities without boundaries. Each creates systemic drag. Each multiplies operational cost. The individual who believes structure restricts freedom discovers that disorder restricts it more severely. The unstructured life requires constant decision-making, constant boundary negotiation, constant energy allocation. The structured life automates these functions, reduces decision fatigue, eliminates repeated negotiations. Structure is not limitation. Structure is efficiency. It creates capacity by eliminating waste. It generates freedom by removing friction. It enables expansion by establishing foundation. 3 structural laws govern this reality. First law: what is not defined cannot stabilize. Without definition, nothing achieves consistent form. Without consistent form, nothing develops reliable function. Without reliable function, nothing produces sustainable value. The undefined relationship oscillates between connection and distance. The undefined role shifts between responsibility and abdication. The undefined goal moves between importance and irrelevance. Oscillation consumes energy. Shifting demands attention. Movement without direction generates exhaustion. Definition creates stability. Stability enables development. Development produces capacity. Capacity allows expansion. Second law: what has no boundary cannot hold weight. Boundaries determine capacity. Without boundaries, load distributes unpredictably. Without predictable distribution, systems fail under stress. Without stress tolerance, growth becomes impossible. The person without time boundaries experiences every request as urgent. The person without financial boundaries finds every expense justified. The person without emotional boundaries absorbs every external state. Unlimited exposure creates unlimited vulnerability. Unlimited vulnerability prevents sustainable function. Boundaries create containment. Containment enables pressure. Pressure generates strength. Strength allows increased load. Third law: what remains open eventually collapses. Open systems leak energy continuously. Without energy conservation, systems cannot accumulate resources. Without accumulated resources, systems cannot weather disruption. Without disruption tolerance, systems remain fragile. The conversation that never concludes continues to drain attention. The project that never finishes continues to consume resources. The decision that never resolves continues to require consideration. Openness without closure creates structural weakness. Closure creates conservation. Conservation enables accumulation. Accumulation provides resilience. Resilience allows sustained operation. These are not suggestions. These are laws. They operate regardless of awareness, regardless of agreement, regardless of preference. Torah demonstrates this principle through creation order. Day 1 establishes light and darkness, separation before function. Day 2 separates waters above from waters below, boundary before expansion. Day 3 creates boundaries for seas and produces vegetation. Containment before fruitfulness. Notice the sequence. Nothing begins to function until separation occurs. Nothing expands until boundaries exist. Nothing multiplies until containers form. The Mishkan follows identical logic: specific materials and precise measurements, defined spaces for specific functions, clear boundaries between sacred and common, structure before presence, order before blessing. This is design law. Nothing in Torah is built without sequence, not creation, not dwelling, not function. Increase never creates order. Order qualifies for increase. The person seeking prosperity without structure discovers that increase amplifies existing problems. More income without spending boundaries creates larger financial chaos. More opportunities without decision frameworks creates greater confusion. More relationships without clear expectations creates deeper complications. Structure must precede scale. Order must establish before expansion. Foundation must solidify before building height. Where is your life active but undefined? Where do you expend energy without creating structure? Where do you engage without establishing boundaries? What do you keep reopening instead of finishing? Which conversations cycle without resolution? Which projects restart without completion? Which decisions revisit without closure? What absorbs effort without producing stability? Which activities consume time without generating progress? Which commitments drain energy without creating value? Which engagements require attention without providing return? Where do you avoid boundaries because they feel restrictive? Which areas lack clear limits? Which relationships operate without defined expectations? Which responsibilities remain uncontained? What would collapse if responsibility increased? Which systems depend on your constant maintenance? Which arrangements cannot function without your continuous input? Which structures require your perpetual attention? What costs you energy every day without return? Which obligations drain without contributing? Which habits consume without producing? Which commitments take without giving back? This is diagnosis, not judgment, not criticism, assessment. The unstructured life appears flexible but operates rigidly. It must respond to every demand because no framework exists to filter requests. It must consider every option because no criteria exist to guide decisions. It must maintain every opening because no system exists to manage closure. The structured life appears rigid but operates flexibly. It can ignore irrelevant demands because frameworks filter appropriately. It can decide quickly because criteria guide efficiently. It can close confidently because systems manage appropriately. People resist structure because they confuse it with restriction. They believe boundaries limit possibility. They think definition reduces options. They assume closure eliminates opportunity. The opposite proves true. Boundaries create possibility by establishing sustainable operation. Definition increases options by enabling efficient evaluation. Closure multiplies opportunity by freeing resources for new engagement. The river without banks spreads into swamp. The river with banks flows with power. The business without focus spreads resources thin. The business with focus concentrates force effectively. The person without boundaries dissipates energy widely. The person with boundaries channels energy productively. Common objections arise predictably. I work better without structure. No, you work differently without structure, usually harder, with more stress, with less consistent results, with greater energy expenditure per unit of output. Life is chaotic by nature. Life contains chaotic elements, but chaos is not the natural state. Order emerges spontaneously when conditions allow. Structure creates those conditions. I will organize later. Later always costs more. Disorder compounds. Complexity increases. Options multiply. The cost of organization grows with delay. The benefit of organization diminishes with postponement. Structure feels limiting. Limitation feels limiting. Structure feels enabling. The person who experiences structure as limiting has not distinguished between appropriate boundaries and inappropriate restrictions. I need flexibility. Flexibility requires foundation. Without structural stability, change creates chaos. With structural stability, change creates adaptation. Structure enables sustainable flexibility. This approach seems mechanical. Mechanical function enables organic expression. The musician practices scales mechanically to perform expressively. The athlete trains systematically to compete creatively. Structure supports spontaneity by handling predictable elements automatically. The cost of disorder extends beyond personal inconvenience. Unstructured lives create unstructured relationships. Unstructured relationships form unstructured communities. Unstructured communities generate unstructured societies. Individual disorder scales to collective chaos. The person who cannot manage personal time cannot contribute to group efficiency. The person who cannot establish personal boundaries cannot create healthy relationships. The person who cannot complete personal projects cannot participate in collective achievement. Structure is not selfish. Structure is generous. It prevents your disorder from affecting others. It enables your capacity to contribute value. It allows your resources to serve larger purposes. Consider the unstructured professional. Meetings run long because time boundaries do not exist. Projects extend indefinitely because completion criteria remain undefined. Communications multiply because initial messages lack clarity. Colleagues compensate for structural absence through additional effort. Consider the unstructured parent. Household routines shift unpredictably. Rules apply inconsistently. Expectations change without notice. Children adapt by developing anxiety or rebellion. Structure would serve family stability. Consider the unstructured citizen. Commitments made but not honored. Resources consumed but not replenished. Services used but not supported. Community structures deteriorate when individual structure fails. Personal order contributes to collective stability. Individual structure enables community function. Private boundaries support public peace. The pathway begins with recognition. Disorder is not neutral, it creates cost. Structure is not restriction, it creates capacity. Recognition enables assessment. Where does disorder currently operate? Where do boundaries need establishment? Where does definition require clarity? Assessment enables prioritization. Which disorder costs most? Which boundary would provide greatest benefit? Which definition would create maximum stability? Prioritization enables action, not multiple actions, not complex systems. Single action, focused implementation, sustained attention. Define one structure before asking life for stability, not 10 structures, not comprehensive organization, not complete systematization. One structure, one boundary, one definition. Choose the area where disorder costs most, where energy drains fastest, where chaos creates greatest disruption, where definition would produce maximum relief. The overwhelmed schedule needs time boundaries. Specific start times, defined end times, clear transition periods, protected space between engagements. The chaotic workspace needs physical organization, defined locations for specific items, clear surfaces for focused work, established systems for information management. The confused finances need spending boundaries, specific categories with defined limits, clear tracking systems, regular review periods. The complicated relationships need expectation clarity, defined roles and responsibilities, clear communication protocols, established boundaries for time and energy. Choose one. Define specifically. Implement consistently. Maintain persistently. Structure builds through repetition. Order develops through consistency. Stability emerges through sustained application. The person who structures one area discovers that structure creates capacity for addressing other areas. The boundary that functions in one domain provides template for boundaries in other domains. The system that works in one context adapts to other contexts. Structure multiplies. Order spreads. Stability expands. But beginning requires focus. Single-point implementation. Concentrated attention, sustained commitment. The attempt to structure everything simultaneously creates new chaos. The effort to organize comprehensively generates overwhelming complexity. The decision to systematize completely produces paralytic options. Start with one, master one, expand from one. The structured life does not guarantee success. It guarantees efficiency. It does not eliminate problems. It reduces problem complexity. It does not create perfection. It enables sustained progress. Structure provides platform for expression. Boundary provides space for creativity. Order provides foundation for growth. The artist needs technical skill to express vision. The athlete needs physical conditioning to demonstrate ability. The professional needs operational systems to deliver value. Structure serves purpose. It does not replace purpose. It enables purpose. It supports purpose. It protects purpose from disorder. Without structure, good intentions dissipate through systemic leakage. With structure, modest intentions compound through systematic application. The difference between structured and unstructured lives becomes apparent over time, not immediately, not dramatically, but consistently. The structured life accumulates value through systematic progress. The unstructured life dissipates value through constant maintenance. The gap widens gradually, then suddenly. After 1 year, the difference is noticeable. After 5 years, the difference is substantial. After 10 years, the difference is dramatic. This is not about perfection. This is about trajectory, not about elimination of all disorder, about management of systemic disorder, not about complete control, about strategic control. The person with one functioning structure has foundation for building additional structures. The person without any functioning structure must create foundation before building anything else. Foundation before construction. Order before expansion. Structure before scale. The unstructured life pays daily fees for disorder. Decision fatigue from constant choice-making. Energy drain from boundary negotiations. Attention diffusion from competing priorities. Resource waste from inefficient operations. These costs accumulate invisibly until they become overwhelming. The structured life pays upfront costs for order. Time investment in system creation. Energy expenditure in habit formation. Attention focus in boundary establishment. Resource allocation for structure building. These costs pay dividends continuously. Reduced decision requirements. Automated boundary management, focused attention application, efficient resource utilization. The choice is not between cost and no cost. The choice is between paying for disorder or paying for order, between temporary convenience and sustainable efficiency, between immediate gratification and lasting stability. Structure requires present sacrifice for future benefit. Disorder provides present comfort for future cost. Time reveals which choice serves better. The hidden cost of an unstructured life is not financial. It is opportunity. The opportunities missed because energy scattered instead of focused. The possibilities unexplored because resources dissipated instead of accumulated. The potential unrealized because attention divided instead of concentrated. Order creates opportunity by concentrating force. Structure generates possibility by conserving energy. Boundaries enable expansion by establishing foundation. The person who pays the upfront cost of structure receives the ongoing dividend of capacity. The person who avoids the upfront cost of structure pays the ongoing penalty of chaos. Both are choices. Both have consequences. Only one creates sustainable advancement. The mathematical reality remains unchanged by preference. Disorder multiplies cost. Order reduces cost. Structure enables scale. Chaos prevents scale. These are laws. They operate consistently. They apply universally. They function regardless of awareness or agreement. Recognition allows alignment with reality. Resistance creates conflict with reality. Alignment reduces friction. Conflict increases friction. The person aligned with structural laws experiences life as flowing with natural order. The person resistant to structural laws experiences life as fighting against natural order. Both experience consequences appropriate to their choice. Define one structure before asking life for stability. Torah is not belief here. It is law. Life does not respond to effort. It responds to order. Subscribe for understanding, not motivation.